What a time to be alive, ladies and gentlemen. I think most people are well aware that people who write news articles for whatever random online platforms so happen to show up in your Google feed are the lowest of the low on the societal totem pole. 90% of these articles are either bought and paid for, written by people who have no idea what they're talking about, or are literally just propaganda. And in some cases, such as the one we have today, you get all three. Actually, never mind, I take that back. He did not get paid for this. Pretty shoddy craftsmanship. One Mr. Julian Sinclair is the subject of today's video, the author behind such bangers as The Handmaiden's Myth, Death to Israel also means death to America, and my personal favorite, and the one we'll be going over today, We Need Clear Heads and a Plan About Epstein Gate. What a bizarre title to downplay the severity of the situation we're in. This isn't a sports or video game controversy, this is the government looking you in the eyes and saying, yeah, we were there, but you can't do anything about it. This video, as you can probably tell so far, is going to be a little bit more mean-spirited as usual, as you can probably understand given the subject matter and the author's particular stance. Forgive me for acting in an uncharacteristic way, but I didn't want to neuter my voice in my writing for the sake of alienating new people. Honesty is best. So I just want to let you know that I am not letting anything go. I am dead serious. So my first criticism is literally with the title. We need clear heads. I mean, who invited you? Why are you pretending as if the everyman has literally any say whatsoever in the decision-making process of fake and compromised politicians?
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed.
It's sitting on my desk for review. For review? Do I even have to say anything to that? Sitting on your desk, what? Next to the whiteout? Sitting on your desk next to the unpaid intern who vaguely knows Photoshop? Over 90% of the responses and discussion about the way the Trump administration has mishandled the Epstein documents and records have been emotional, vitriolic, or outright filled with rage. I added some words there. I can understand why and agree to a large degree what Jeffrey Epstein did, likely with the approval, if not outright endorsement, of Western intelligence agencies, was a crime against humanity. However, it is in these moments when faced with immense evil that we must proceed with clear heads and not react emotionally. This is true if you're dealing with someone face to face. I'd say this is true in most instances of human interaction in general. But in this case, calm mind, no anger response is pathetically weak, and this is exactly what these evil people bank on you doing. You aren't dealing with just one person here. On top of all of the people who actively participated in the island activities, you have all of their friends and family that could have known about it and said nothing. There are so many people linked to this event that could have known and just didn't say anything. He owned the island since 1998. The amount of people that endorsed, were complicit in, or even just knowledgeable on this could very well range in the hundreds to low thousands. And you expect the government to hold itself accountable? He later goes on to explain that he was in the US military, so he really should understand how our higher-ups operate well enough to know that this would absolutely never happen. It speaks well to he says our because he's a very, staunch Republican. So whenever he makes references to our side or his side, it's always like a very hyper MAGA Trump guy. It speaks well to our side that unlike the 4 years in which Biden did not release the Epstein documents, there is a collective rage from the right at the Trump's administration gross mishandling, some would argue outright cover-up, but I doubt this, of the case. Unlike the Democrats, we demand and hold our leaders accountable, even when it might hurt us. That is because our side actually believes in justice and accountability even when it is not convenient for us. Okay, well, quote-unquote, our side isn't releasing them either. Donald Trump himself wants you to forget any of this ever happened.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time?
And I just want to say this real quick. If you live in the big 2025 and still don't understand that it's not political party versus political party, but citizen versus the government, you are something else. Just keep eating your slop, bro. I'll sit here and eat my slop like a good boy. Especially now with all of the Epstein stuff going on, you will literally see people who supposedly hate each other, at least publicly defending one another. They're all on the same side fighting you the American citizen, and yet you write this article attacking in all directions as if the average Democratic voter wouldn't be just as outraged or just as reasonable. You're a moron who is playing into a system designed to create infighting. Why you felt compelled to go on record record publicly humiliating yourself to defend people that hate you is beyond me.
Unlike the Democrats, we hold ourselves.
There is no we. There is no we. You are poor and voiceless. You are in the same boat as everybody else. Hold ourselves accountable? You mean like how Trump lost the 2020 election and viciously claimed the only way he could have possibly lost was through election fraud? Yes, absolutely a beacon of self-responsibility and accountability.
That is because our side actually believes in justice and accountability.
No, they don't. No, they don't. None of them do. The government can walk onto your land and kill your entire family for no reason, and you wouldn't be able to do anything about it. And this statement right here that you've made is obviously not true, and not even you yourself believe it, because the entirety of the article is writing an itemized list of reasons as to why you aren't willing to deal with the consequences your glorious king would face should the list be revealed. And the most blatantly obvious counter-argument to all this is if they weren't on it, they wouldn't have anything to worry about. If powerful world leaders weren't on it, nobody would care if it got released, but they are. They're all on it. They're all a part of it.
However, we should avoid demanding resignations unilaterally, getting angry, or shouting, "Damn the consequences, release it all."
None of us who aren't in, I'm sorry, I keep doing the voice. None of us who aren't in the Trump administration really have all the facts, and even if we did, those responses would be based on emotional outrage and not good sense, quote, or even blind justice, end quote. That's the thing, though. You don't really need all the facts. I mean, I understand due process, whatnot, but the only thing you need to know is if they were there. And honestly, the gray areas matter extremely little. If they were on the island during the period of time in which these crimes were committed, this is an island. It would be an absolutely ludicrous, not the rapper, stretch in logic to deduce that these people that have visited multiple times had no idea this activity was going on or had not participated. Has the government ever once proven themselves trustworthy to you? Lying about the allocation of funds, starting illegal wars overseas, blackmail, and assassination is all fine. Those lives lost are merely collateral for the greater good, but the second something happens in-house, all of a sudden proper justice is to be held to the highest standards, and we need all the facts before pursuing justice. And blind justice? Justice is supposed to be blind, you fucking moron. The term blind justice is used to convey that everyone is being held to the same set of rules regardless of who they are. If justice is blind, then it is fair and it is objective. If you listen to evil people long enough, they'll tell you exactly who they are and what they really want, and you really messed up with that. What might be the consequences of just releasing it all? Damn the consequences. We don't know how far this crime against humanity goes, but let us assume that it involves world leaders, Fortune 500 CEOs, and the elites across the world. First, we have no idea which world leaders it would affect, which regions it would destabilize, or even which companies' stocks it would affect. I don't even have like a super properly articulated response to this. If they participated at all, they go to jail and get replaced by people who aren't chomos. On what planet is that too much to ask for? And I mean, like, let's be reasonable for a second. Let's bring our brains back down to earth. Destabilizing regions? You can't possibly think that genuinely. If you want something punchy and intimidating, you have to at least have something plausible. And if money and stock prices are the thing stopping you from committing the justice and preventing tragedy from coming to more kids, I believe in my heart that you are genuinely an evil person. While stock prices may seem trivial compared to justice, okay, well, at least he acknowledges that he has a terrible take. I don't understand why he would write it if he understands that, but, whatever. Would you be willing to sacrifice the pension funds of millions of working-class Americans? What if it were your retirement that became worthless because half the Fortune 500 CEOs of the past 30 years were implicated? Would you be willing to live a retirement of poverty because you said, damn the consequences? Stupid argument. I'm Gen Z. I don't care. Old people will have spent my retirement decades before it ever becomes available to me anyways, so I have nothing to lose. And companies don't disappear with their leaders. When the United Healthcare CEO was killed, he was replaced before his body was even cold. And let's be real, you have no idea what would happen. Several times in this article, he tries to state exactly what would happen if the list were to come out, but he has no idea. He is just as clueless as the rest of us, but he has enough Reddit gold on red pill pages to think he's an authority figure on any of this. Further, if world leaders are implicated, would you be willing to send your children to war, a war that may only be being held back because the CIA has blackmail on a hostile world leader, or even a friendly one, just so that the documents are released? Are you yourself willing to die in a war that the CIA's blackmail theoretically might have prevented? These are part of the consequences that could plausibly happen if we emotionally say damn the consequences and assume that we ourselves will not suffer for them. Where did war come from? What what are you talking about? You just pulled an imaginary problem out of nowhere made out of pure BS. Why would the US having blackmail on a hostile world leader mean anything? Do you know how easy it would be to deny that from their perspective? They could just pass it off as like slander. What a stupid argument. If we could turn people against each other and start wars that easily, we would be photoshopping fake documents day in, day out to get our enemies to fight each other. Why even fight China and Russia when we can doctor images of both world leaders peeing on one another's flag gifted to them so gracefully by the Americans? Did you think about any of this before you wrote it? CIA blackmail only works on Americans and allies. Sorry that doesn't extend to the entire world in the same way that if Russian intelligence had blackmail on Americans, you would not believe it, especially you. I guarantee you wouldn't. And if I see any variation of like the term damn the consequences one more time, I'm gonna lose it. He's like a child who just learned a new word and now feels the need to shoehorn it into every sentence. It is very easy to say in the peak of justified outrage, damn the consequences. Is this guy serious? Release it all. But would you be so willing to say the same thing if you yourself might be killed in a war or forced to live a retirement in poverty? Or would you be willing to inflict those sufferings on others merely to sate? I don't understand why he wouldn't say satiate, merely to sate your own outrage. He writes weirder than I do. His stuff's kind of weird to read, I can't lie. I don't know if that's just me. How do you combat someone who is stirring in their own delusion and repeating themselves so that they can feel like their arguments hold weight? And people aren't satiating their outrage. We're demanding justice, what you're supposed to do as an American citizen. Justice is only something you understand when the party that you don't like does something wrong, not when the one you do like does it wrong. So I'm not taking any of this from you. Further, if the CIA was involved, and I think this is likely, would you be willing to cede the moral high ground to the Chinese Communist Party, which would immediately capitalize on such a propaganda coup against the West? If Mossad was involved, or Ariel Shannon, are you willing to allow a second Holocaust to happen after Israel loses all standing international? There are very few things you could do to lose in a morality competition with China. We don't need suicide nets around our buildings, do we? And is that seriously what you're worried about? Like losing an imaginary competition with China? How would you suppose the CCP would quote-unquote capitalize on this opportunity? Please elaborate. Please elaborate. Would the government push their citizens to hate America even more? Because we already do that without intervention pretty well, I'd say. And notice how he goes for the morality standpoint straight into an emotionally manipulative nothing burger of a statement about a second Holocaust and yet another imaginary scenario used to elicit sympathy from brain-dead readers whose last original opinion they had in their lives was using the Olympia or the M14 in the starting room. The mental gymnastics you had to pull to bring in a Holocaust mention in all of this, while impressive, does nothing but show how actually unbased all of your claims are. Perhaps some would. We've seen recently that there are some virulent anti-Semites on. Did I say that right? Virulent. English is my first language, by the way. Anti-Semites on the right, but no sane person would ever take that position. Some of you may even think it's worth letting the CCP get a quote-unquote win over this. Well, when a Chinese soldier throws you up against a wall and shoots you in the back of the head because we lost a war with China, I hope you're satisfied you did the right thing. Holy shit. There is a lot wrong with this, so we're gonna switch it up and do bullet points so I don't get freaking madness build up writing the script. 1. Calling people that disagree with you insane is dehumanizing them and thus creating an uneven discussion field, and you are resorting to that tactic because you don't even believe what you're saying. 2. You champion your political side as superior and the only one willing to truly commit to justice, but you just outed that it apparently has an anti-Semite problem. Not only that, but Israel has absolutely nothing to do with this discussion, and this is not the only time in the article that you mention them for absolutely no reason at all. It's the second time chronologically. 3. Releasing all the Epstein files is absolutely and unequivocally not going to result in mainland USA immediately being invaded by China. What are you smoking? I don't even have the energy for this. Is this rage bait? Am I being rage bait? I would personally be willing to suffer all of those things to topple corrupt elites. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. Don't fucking lie to me. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not even gonna read all that because it's just a blatant lie. Because if that's true, then what is the rest of this post even about? What's this entire post about? The anger and rage should not be at the Trump administration and its handling of all this, although much of the criticism can be leveled at how it was handled, just not anger or rage. It should be leveled at Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden, as well as all the attorneys general. Donald Trump is the one guy who has been against Epstein early on, in parentheses, he cut ties long before most others, that he should now suffer blame for past administrations when he was the only one willing to act against Epstein is not only disingenuous, but an outright libel. He just writes weird. It's hard to read. I find it really odd how all the people that you've chosen for this list specifically are all people that Trump personally doesn't like and has publicly spoken out about. I find that weird. Maybe it's because you aren't a real person using your own brain, but an absorber of Fox News slop with no soul of your own. Just a theory, though. They're all guilty, and anyone involved, anyone who knew, all guilty. You don't get to say someone is or isn't because you politically agree or disagree with them. And no, Trump wasn't going against him because he never outed Epstein's operation, despite, I guarantee you he knew. I guarantee you. Even though he cut ties with him, he never at any point acted against him in any capacity other than no longer affiliating with him. These were the big points, and I'm gonna keep it 99 and round up with you, bro. I am actually physically exhausted reading this, and I don't want to continue. Largely, it's just making up more fake scenarios and pretending like he knows what he's talking about. People like this guy set America back by playing the perfect fool for the evil politicians to take shield behind. I like to think of the two-party system as a perfected version of what the United Kingdom's monarchy could never be. When the people in the UK have political problems and disagreements, the fingers are always pointed at the same people or family. Therefore, the citizens are united against their government as they understand that when something happens that isn't in their best interest, the people have a common enemy in the government. However, in America, with the illusion of choice, we have two people who belong to different parties discussing something and coming to a common issue. But despite agreeing on the issue, the way it goes is they'll eventually go back and forth explaining how had the candidate they wanted elected been put into power, the issue would not exist, and that person would have handled it better than said person that is already in office. Therefore, instead of coming together to realize that it is the lawmakers and politicians that are the problem, they blame one another for voting the opposite way to them as if they are the ones solely responsible. Nothing will change until we're all on the same page. Release the Epstein files, lock these pedophiles in prison, and don't listen to these morons who try to act like it's a party issue. The parties don't exist. The government is one team against you. This is a big deal, everyone. This website has 2.6 million visits this year. There are actually a lot of people in this country that subscribed to this exact frame of thought. I hope a lot of people my age listen to this. I really do, because it's up to us to change things. The older generations have fundamentally screwed us over in just about every way they possibly could. We can't rely on them to fix things by the time it's our turn to take the reins. They will likely just continue to make things worse until they all die. Don't give in to this cover-up BS. Even if we are incapable of holding those responsible to legal accountability, we can make sure they never forget their actions. Because hold no doubt in your heart, they did it, and you know it too. Stay woke, kings and queens. Frick these guys, dude.